U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday night that the United States and India had reached a landmark trade agreement after months of negotiations. With this deal in place now, it would help reduce some of the most punishing tariffs that America had placed on Indian imports at 50%. The deal, as President Trump described it, would roll back some of his tariffs in return for India dropping its tariffs on some American goods. He also mentioned that India had told him that they would stop the purchase of Russian oil. The agreement included few details beyond America lowering its tariff on India's exports to 18% from the current 50%. In fact, Trump had raised the tariffs on Indian products to 50% following troubled bilateral negotiations over the last year. Half of those tariffs, 25%, were reciprocal tariffs, and the other half for the import of Russian oil. That second part, the 25% tariff for import of Russian oil, has been removed entirely. This trade agreement is also likely to diffuse some of the tensions between the United States and India. The tariffs have hurt India's attractiveness as a manufacturing hub, particularly for those companies that have tried to move their factories out of China post-COVID. In his post, President Trump also said that he would reduce American tariffs on India and that India would likewise move forward to reduce their tariffs and non-tariff barriers against the United States to zero. He also said that he and Prime Minister Modi had discussed ending the war in Ukraine and that India had agreed to buy oil from the United States and from Venezuela instead of Russia. Trump's claim also included that Modi had promised to buy American at a much higher level, including $500 billion of U.S. energy, technology, agriculture, coal, and many other products. But the Indian government is still awaiting the fine print of this trade agreement. So the effective tariff rate on India would go down from 50% to just 18%. And this was confirmed by the U.S. Ambassador to India, Sergio Gore, in an exclusive phone interview with CNN News 18. Ambassador Gore, many congratulations. India and the U.S. now have a trade deal. Can you give us a little more details on how this was achieved and how this was arrived at?
All the credit goes to President Trump and Prime Minister Modi. Since I arrived in India about a month ago, I have said, and I truly mean it, that the two leaders have a great personal relationship. And that is something that carried this deal forward. The potential between India and the United States is limitless. And so I'm thrilled that India is getting this 18%, which is a massive drop from the previous number. We have incredible deals ahead. And so, as I've said since I've arrived here, the best is yet to come.
In a post on the social media platform X, Prime Minister Narendra Modi wrote that he was delighted by the tariff reduction, but was similarly spare on the details, including whether India would stop buying Russian oil. There was also no clarity on which American products India had agreed to buy. This is what he posted on X, and I quote, "When two large economies in the world's largest democracies work together, it benefits our people and unlocks immense opportunities for mutually beneficial cooperation. President Trump's leadership is vital for global peace, stability, and prosperity." That last part was vital to diffuse some of the tensions around Trump's repeated claims that he had helped broker a ceasefire between India and Pakistan last summer after Operation Sindoor. The White House did not immediately provide any other details of the trade agreement, neither did the government of India. A White House spokesman said that the administration expected to release the signed documents soon, possibly within this week. The initial agreements that the Trump administration has announced over the past year have often been a framework agreement. And in some cases, like the deals with South Korea or with the European Union, there have been issues that these deals have run into in recent weeks. But this effectively puts India in a sweet spot within the region, as well as amongst its more export-oriented peers in the Asia-Pacific. Pakistan has been tariffed at 19%, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka at 20%, Vietnam at 20%, Philippines and Indonesia at 19%. So India at 18% is in a fairly competitive space.
भारत के भविष्य को चार चांद लगाने वाला ट्रेड डील माननीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में कल रात फाइनलाइज किया गया है कि ये वास्तव में भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था को, भारत के 140 करोड़ नागरिकों को, हर गरीब किसान, मछुआरा, गांव में रहने वाला युवा युवती, हमारी बहनें महिलाएं, सभी के लिए ढेर सारे अवसर लाने वाला ट्रेड डील माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कल तय किया।
Just last week, India announced a long-awaited trade deal with the European Union as both governments look to diversify their markets. India also signed a free trade agreement with Britain last year, as well as FTAs with Oman and New Zealand. But the lack of a deal with the United States had been a sore spot for India, which counts America as its largest trading partner. Almost 20% of all of India's trade goes to America. Both countries carried out 6 rounds of difficult negotiations this past year. After the reciprocal tariffs of 25% in July, Trump then changed the goalposts by adding another 25% tariff on the import of Russian oil, effectively making India the highest tariff nation in the world. At the beginning of his second term, the friendly relationship between Trump and Modi had raised hopes for an early trade deal. Prime Minister Modi, in fact, led a delegation from New Delhi to Washington just 2 weeks after Trump's re-election, sparking hopes of an early deal. But just as he did for the other countries, Trump imposed steep tariffs on Indian exports. He announced in July that Indian goods would face 25% reciprocal tariff, and then he doubled that rate in August, saying that India should stop buying Russian oil. Through months of trade talks, the two sides continue to spar over issues like agricultural access and dairy. It is still not clear if India has agreed to open up its agri and dairy sectors. In fact, India is very clear that agri and dairy are red lines. There was also the sore point around Operation Sindoor, Modi's refusal to back up Trump's claim that he had brokered a ceasefire between India and Pakistan last May, a claim which India entirely denies. But now there seems to be a thaw in the relationship, not least because of this interim trade agreement that's been announced by both America and India. But more importantly, this now sets the stage for a reversal in the rupture in the relationship that we had seen over the last 1 year.
Fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.